hello. Hi. Hi everybody. I planned for that to be like significantly more chill and like relaxed and, you know, but thank you for the quack. Thank you so much, Mr. Gista and Thrio, and also Clara. Clara resubbed like 23 days ago, and I haven't streamed in like 2 months, so. So also thank you there for Mr. Gista for the 26 months of Prime. That is a commitment. Thank you so much. And 3 for 22 months. Yay, beads. Yes, we're gonna, if you guys thought that you have seen me excited about beads, you might stand corrected today. I get so excited. Originally I was like, we're gonna do some Minecraft maybe. And then I was like, nah, I need an easy win. So the easiest thing for me to stream is talking about beads, obviously. So we're just gonna talk about beads. It's gonna be great. This is I don't know how long this stream is gonna be, but I can talk for days about beads, so I'm not running out of material anytime soon. But hello, and also hello Heather on YouTube and Robert Skitch, and did I see anybody else? I'm not sure. I've lost track of the chats. I wish I had a window that had all of the chat in it that I could scroll. I have a window with all the chats, like the ones from YouTube and Twitch mixed together, but I don't have a window where I can scroll back. But I think I've caught everybody, so hello! And hello to anyone who might be lurking. I tend not to shout out lurkers because I'm a serial lurker, and it's, yeah. But hello! Talking about beads, you can see this being a long thread. Thank you, 3O, thank you so much. Also, I realized, you know my emote, my donut tangent emote? Here's the thing. What is a bead but a round object with a central perforation? Ergo. Now, here's the question. Are donuts beads, or are beads donuts? This becomes a thing. And also, donut is a technical term for glass beads in archaeology. Like, we call them donut shape if they're kind of, I mean, you can also call them annulars, which just means they're ring shaped. So if you saw my recent video about rock art, I say recent, it was a while ago. Now, because it's been a hot second. It's 2025 needs to chill. Otherwise, 2025 can get in the sea. But for right now, it needs to chill. You and Botrix here on YouTube? Yeah, I think it might be. I usually have fewer people on YouTube just because it's harder to like advertise the stream without promising something that might get cancelled last minute. so YouTube, I tend not to advertise terribly far in advance, which means that a lot of people don't necessarily know if they're not in the well, I don't advertise on Twitch either because I cancel with such regularity. But yeah, edible bead. I agree, 3O. I absolutely agreed. Also, hello, welcome in Scotland. The entire nation of Scotland. Welcome. Hello, G, welcome in. Not allowed to talk about classification of anything. You get very passionate about the cube rule. Yes, well, this easy icebreaker though, if you're ever in charge of a group of children, particularly between the ages of like 12, okay, if you're in charge of a group of preteens to teenagers and or young adults, that also works, asking them to define a sandwich is a really great icebreaker because people have opinions and they're not afraid to say them. And a lot of people find that they have common opinions about what does and doesn't define a sandwich. But also there's so many different opinions that you get a good argument going. It's good. It's like the thing I keep in my back pocket whenever I'm in charge of groups of young people is defining a sandwich. Also, hello Febble Pebble. And also, did I see somebody else? Hello Superfast. Welcome in. Hello. I feel like I saw somebody else. Maybe not. This is the other thing, is that my brain is a little fried, which is another reason we're talking about beads, because I can talk about beads in my sleep. Hello Scotsman, welcome in. Thank you for 14 months. How the heck has it been 14 months? I don't know. How the heck has it been 2 months since I streamed? I genuinely don't know. So, oh, Artisy, that's who I saw. Hello, Artisy. I was like, wait a minute, I saw somebody. Hello. Yes. Get Caravan Sandwich at some point. I have played like 1 hour of that game, and then I ended up in so many flares and in so much brain fog that I haven't picked it up since. because I'm like, I know I'm gonna like this game, but I don't have the brain capacity to pay attention to the story right now, so I want to wait until I can pay attention to the story. And now I've owned the game for like 6 months or whatever, and I've played like an hour, but I'm excited to finally like actually dive into it. Recently I've been playing a large amount of Stardew Valley, because I know the game, and I installed a lot of mods. So yeah, I'm being magical in Stardew Valley. It's great. And then I've been playing a lot of Ocean Block 2, the mod pack for Minecraft, because I do like a Skyblock-esque series, and Ocean Block 2 is fun. Yeah, other than that, I've also been playing recently. My husband and I have both been playing a game called Proverbs. Hold on, wait, let me see if I can get you guys the link. Let me open Steam. This is not remotely sponsored by Proverbs. It's just a fun game. If you like number puzzles, hello, Urban Exotics! Welcome in, hello, hello. Speaking of food taxonomy, rewatch the tasting history episode about pizzas. Those old pizzas are definitely not pizzas. Yeah. Ocean Block is a heck of a grind, yes. Ocean Block 2, I think, is probably slightly better for that. But yes, a Skyblock that I can sit and just like wait for machines to process things while, I don't know, crushing gravel. For some reason it works when I've got major brain fog. But yeah, so let me find Proverbs. Hold on, it's on Steam. Where is it? Can I do... No, I don't want to play. I just want the store page. There we go. Okay. I don't need... Okay, we're gonna turn this off before Steam decides to confuse everything. Alright, so here's the link in Twitch chat, and then here's the link in YouTube chat. Edible beads are a perfect description of donuts. I agree. Yes. Wonderful. Okay. Yeah, so Proverbs, okay, now this is not like, it's not necessarily PG. I mean, it is, but it's a number puzzle. It's like Minesweeper meets, I don't know, art. It's not quite Minesweeper. It's like you're basically like doing number puzzles to uncover bits of this massive painting, and different bits of it are different Dutch proverbs or Dutch sayings, and a certain number of those are a little bit crass. So maybe don't play it with a 6-year-old, but it's surprisingly Moorish. It's really, really good. Coral Island. Yes, Coral Island is really good. Canadian Dragon, who is probably not... Well, Canadian Dragon might appear at some point during this stream, but it is a bit early for him. He's been playing a lot of Coral Island on his channel on Twitch. Hold on. Oh, is it not going to let me shout him out? Because he's not in chat. No. Okay. On. Or am I just typing it wrong? Nope. Hey, Glam Pixie, welcome in. Okay, let me quickly get to Canadian Dragon's Twitch, because Twitch chat is being silly. Hey, Kashashin, welcome in. Hello, hello. Yes, I saw your comments of like, oh, I hope you stream soon. I was like, well, I'm actually planning to stream imminently. Well, within, 24 hours. Okay, so that's Dragon's Twitch channel. I mean, I'll put it also in the YouTube chat, but he doesn't stream on YouTube. But if you want to follow him on Twitch, he's there. He's been playing a lot of Coral Island. He's done way more Coral Island, certainly on stream, and also just in general than I have. It's a great game. I love Coral Island. It's an Indonesian game as well. The dev team is Indonesian. They're based in, I believe most of them are based in Jakarta. lived in Indonesia for a while, so it's really nostalgic to play Coral Island, and really great to see Southeast Asian culture featured in a way in farming sim games, because that doesn't happen terribly often. Yeah, so I definitely recommend that. Any other games I've been playing? This is now I'm like, ooh, can I recommend any games to you guys? I'm sure I can, but I can't think of them. Hold on, let me open Steam again. I mean, Proverbs is really good. Speaking of really pretty puzzle games, my favorite ever game. I mean, I do love Minecraft, so it's probably tied with several games, but my favorite game here that's like a puzzle game is called Gorogoa. It's done by Annapurna Interactive. It's the same people who did the same publisher? Is Annapurna? Yeah, same publisher as like the Stanley Parable, and the most recent, if you've seen stuff for Wanderstop, it's the same publisher. Gorogoa is like the most gorgeous puzzle game I have ever played, and I adore it. And I will continually recommend it to people. I would say there are some like more serious, like there's a little bit of depressive themes in there to a degree. It's not as bad as it sounds. But oh yeah, Chance of Sonar. Okay, all right, yes. So Gorogoa, I will say, maybe don't play it if you're not feeling in a terribly like if you're not feeling at least neutral. If you're in a bad mood already, maybe take care with playing Gorogoa, because some elements of it are like very on the nose. But yes. And then Chance of Sonar. I love Chance of Sonar. Hold on. We will talk about beads, but games are also a really big thing for me, so let me find Chance of Sonar. It would be helpful if I remembered the order of the alphabet. This is what we're on, people. There it is. Store page. Copy. Chance of Sonar is a linguistic puzzle game that's kind of like the Tower of Babel. It's wonderful. The only thing I will say is that like 99% of Chance of Sonar is super cozy. I mean, like, they're adult themes in there, but none of it's like, it's just kind of a chill linguistic puzzle time. Except for like 1 to 2% of the game where there are like monster type creatures that that's timed and you have to run away from. But it is limited, so I do recommend it. But I also wish that I had known that before I was playing, because I was playing once when I was in a bad flare, I was having a bad time, and I was like, I just need something kind of cozy. And it was not cozy in that moment. So yeah, hold on, let me put this in the various chats. Here it is in YouTube, and then here it is in Twitch. Gorogoa is very pretty. Yeah. Yes, I agree, Robert Skitch. Playing again when you can kind of playing once where you concentrate on the story and once where you concentrate on the puzzles. It's not a long game. It takes like 2.5 hours to like do everything. I think. I mean, it'll obviously depend on the rate at which you solve the puzzles, but it's not a terribly long game. And it's really gorgeous. Gorogoa is the one puzzle game that I really wish I could play again for the first time, like that I could delete the memory of the answers from my brain so that I could play Gorogoa again, because, and maybe in like 10 years I can, but it's wonderful. And then what was did somebody else say something? There was something else. Oh, I was also thinking, okay, Pentiment. Now we're getting into archaeology. Hold on, let me get to Pentiment. Hold on. Pentiment is if you like puzzle games, Pentiment is kind of like a mystery puzzle. Oh, I have to enter my age. I'm not gonna put the actual date, I'll just put the actual year. I am well old enough to be looking at Pentiment. Yeah, Pentiment is a wonderful game. It is set in the very late medieval period, so it's like the 15th, late 15th to early 16th century. I think it may even be like early 16th century. It's very late medieval, and it's done in the style of an illuminated manuscript, and it's the story of this artist in Germany. And some of the stuff that's in there is actual stuff that happened, and some of it is made up. So the town that you're in is completely made up. The monastery is completely made up, but they're based on towns and monasteries in Germany at the time. It's a really great game, and I love it. It's bonkers in places, in the beautiful way that illuminated manuscripts are often bonkers in places. But also, I will say, a good warning for that one is it is a puzzle game. There isn't one correct answer, and that is good to know going in. It's not, or another way to phrase it is that it's not physically possible for you to collect enough information to be sure of your answer. So it's okay. Like if you don't get to the point where you have to solve the puzzle and feel like you don't know what you're doing and you failed somehow. You haven't failed. It's part of the point. So it's, yeah. I haven't played Pentiment on stream. Maybe I should. Would you guys enjoy a Pentiment stream? I'd probably, because there's an age gate on the Steam page, I'd probably have to say that we're not family friendly adjacent for that stream, but that's fine. Yeah, that'd be great to watch. We could do a Pentiment stream. Pentiment's great. It's also bonkers, but it's so well done. The main dev on it, like the lead dev, I think he did a degree in medieval history, I think. Or at the very least, I think he did a degree, or at least several classes, but he has a grounding in it. And they also consulted with archaeologists and historians and everything. The costuming is beautiful. It's the way they've done it. It's just, Pentiment is a beautiful game. It is bonkers in places, but in the medieval sort of way. So it's great. Also, hello, Harold, welcome in. Hello. We are going to talk about beads, but we started talking about games that I like, so so I've been talking about those. Did I put Pentiment in the YouTube thing? Is that? I think so. Yes. Okay. Good. Excellent. Yeah. I've also debated like doing some more Sky Factory 4 streams and such because there are points where I'm like, yes, I do want to do ArchaeoSMP and everything, but at the same time, I feel like I need to like have a plan for those. And you all know my hello. If you are not following Rin, hold on, wait a minute. Let me see if we can get a shout out. It would help if I typed things correctly. It would really help if I typed things correctly. All right. If you're not following Rin, you absolutely should. Rin is part of ArchaeoSMP, so I mentioned ArchaeoSMP and Rin appeared. Yes. Hello. Oh, no worries at all. Especially because like half the time I think I'm following people and then it turns out that I've been watching them for like a year and a half and somehow I'm not following and I don't understand how. Yeah, so I don't judge when people follow at all. Yes, Rin is part of ArchaeoSMP. You can do in Twitch chat, you can do !archeo. Here, I'll just do !archeo. That's a Minecraft server that Harold is also a part of, and a number of other people. It's an archaeology-based Minecraft server, so people who are interested in archaeology or who are archaeologists themselves are on the server. We make videos, we stream. I haven't been able to stream in like 2 months from it because I've been ill and busy. But we will get there. Just not today. Today we're talking about ancient glass beads. Hello, and yes, and also thank you for the follow, Kai. Welcome in. Hello. You knew I was going live tonight. It was waiting for the note. Oh, it never came. Oh, that's weird. Oh, that's why, because you weren't following. That would make sense. Yep, see, that's the other thing. That's the other way that I find out I'm somehow not following people, is when people are like, did you see the notification? I'm like, no, I really didn't. And I'm like, oh, because I'm not following. So yes, hello. Yeah, Twitch also does that, and YouTube does that as well. YouTube generally doesn't do it often. Well, if you have a YouTube channel and you look at your subscriber numbers from day to day, basically every time you get new subscribers, a couple days later, those subscribers might disappear, like the numbers might go back down by the same number. And then a few days later, they'll reappear. It's basically YouTube checking to make sure that whoever's subscribing is like a legit account and not like a bot or something like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if Twitch also had places where that happened and then potentially just like forgot to, I don't know, Twitch be twitchy maybe. Discord and Twitch notifications do not work sometimes. Yeah, I agree. Sometimes they just don't. Sometimes they just don't. Also, welcome in, Clara. Hello. Have I missed saying hello to anybody? If I have, hello. Welcome in, everyone. we're gonna say to everybody. Hello. Shall we talk about beads? We've been talking about video games, but shall we talk about beads? Do you want to talk about beads? I should probably tell you where I've been, actually. So, I published my rock art video on YouTube, and then I had a bad flare, and then I had a bad cold for like 2 weeks, and then I had another bad flare, and then for Carved in Stone, right, the Pictish tabletop RPG setting guide / just illustrated encyclopedia about the Picts that I'm helping to create. That we're getting our artists, or at least we're getting information to our artists, like, imminently. And the thing about art for a book like this is that obviously the artists need to know what people might wear and when they might wear it and what different, categories of people might wear and such. And so, and also what the various archaeology things look like. So basically I've spent the last 2 weeks, sourcing archaeological images. We have, between Brian and I, we have sourced roughly 900 images for this book, which is worth it, but it's been a lot. But I did post in the Discord, I did post photos of my favorite images, which actually I can show you. Hold on, wait. This is as good an excuse as any to hop in to, this isn't beads, but it's great anyway. Hold on, let me get to them. Hold. Here we go. Will this, oh, we need you to come over this way and not block stuff. Is it inappropriate? Flare of what? I have 7 different chronic illnesses. So a lot of them flare all at once because they're in the same part of the body. So basically what happens for me during a flare is I have really bad brain fog, so it's difficult to process words. And then my right hip, basically it feels like somebody's stabbing me incessantly. Yeah. It's and then of course all of that, there are side effects that end up affecting other things. So it's a bit of a mess, a bit of a pain, and very frustrating to deal with because it happens on a regular basis. But yeah, okay, right. So, however, wait a minute, where am I doing this? Okay, we're gonna, there's gonna be a certain amount of finagling that happens, but hopefully this works. Nope. I clicked the wrong thing. Hold on, wait a minute. We need to get to, okay, so we're here. We need to get to this, and then, do you guys, this is one of the things. Why is it so small? Why'd we go small? Look at how cute this puppy is. Okay, one of the things I had to do was figure out what kind of dogs the Picts might have had. And it turns out that they're sort of like herding / animal guarding dogs were probably closest to what are known as Icelandic sheepdogs. And aren't they adorable? There's also this one. And there's this one. And there's this one. They're like Shiba Inu, but like floofier. Winterized Shiba Inu. European winterized Shiba Inus. Effectively. They're adorable. So yeah, that was the best part of that. And then I also got to find out what the Picts' like hunting dogs might have been. So we're gonna come back over here and oh, that's too small. Hold on. Oh, that's not great. There's some of these are just poses. Okay, they're Scottish deerhounds, or at least they're closest to Scottish deerhounds. This is such a sweet puppy. Okay, yeah, so Scottish deerhounds are like Irish wolfhounds. They're just a little bit smaller and they tend to be a bit darker in their coat a lot of the time. So anyway, so that was a significant portion of, well, it wasn't a significant portion. It was a part of the last 2 weeks, which was great. Because I have a ton of, I think it's just Heather, it's just the size of the image. Some of them, especially for the Scottish deerhounds, I found a lot of really nice images, but a lot of them ended up being too small. So remembering back to including that one, I included that one because it's a different pose of this dog so that the artist can use it if they want to have dogs running. But yeah, there were a lot of really nice photos that were way too small for artists to be able to do much with. So yeah. Yes. I adore these dogs. And then also, is there an also? Did I source images for? Did I only source images for those guys? Maybe I did. I did have to figure out what kind of lap dogs they might have had, but maybe I didn't. I genuinely don't remember. 900 images. So most of which I probably can't show you because a lot of them are copyright. But we're using them for artist references. They're just like, we're not copying any of them, but yeah, it's I feel like I had images of other dogs. There was also a lot of goat images. It was great. But yeah, anyway, beads. Hold on, wait. You like the dog in Heartbeat? I don't know that I've seen Heartbeat. Aren't some of those like 5 feet tall? Yeah. They could still be a puppy and be like, I mean, 5 feet. If they stood on their hind legs, they'd be like 5 feet tall. Some of them are enormous. Scottish deerhounds are big dogs. But yeah, I still count them. Anyway, do we want to talk about beads? You guys want to see some beads? Hold on. Let me see. The thing about this is that I have to go into the properties for this thing. Oh, come on. I had this all properly sized and it's just decided that it's not going to be properly sized anymore. It was all organized and now it's just, there we go. But anyway, here's a bead. This is a glass bead from northeastern Scotland. This is potentially a Pictish bead. Technically, hey Dragon, welcome in. Hello. And also hello Lady Oolong. I saw your name and then I promptly forgot to say hello. So hello. Yeah. So beads. The OG donut tangent. This is from a site in sort of northeastern Scotland along the coast, kind of between, if you imagine like between Inverness and Aberdeen, is there. You know, the bit of Scotland that kind of juts out into it. Well, it juts out like that on the map. It's kind of there. And I show you that you want beads. I always want beads. Yeah, this is what I call a Triskelly bead. Because it has a spiral, but it has 3 separate sides. Now this one's broken, so we won't be able to see the whole thing. But I talked about these in a video for ArchaeoSMP Season 2. They're sort of like triangular beads that have had the points of the triangles chopped off, and then the spiral is centered on where the point used to be, and then it spirals out. But what's really cool is that these, hold on, let me make sure that I'm okay. Here, I can do this. Part of this too is that I have to censor which photos I show you, not because I don't want to show you everything, but because some of them have museum accession numbers on them, and I don't have permission from the museum to like publish these photos in an official capacity for this. So basically, I can't tell you exactly where these are or exactly, you know, what museum they're in and what their accession number is. That's all. So the cool thing is, so basically like the spiral, this is one spiral here, this is the same bead, and then another starts here and another starts here, and they spiral out. However, what's cool is that they spiral, so these ones, this is the underside, or well, it's the side where the spirals don't connect. But on the other side, the spirals connect in the center to form a Triskele. Now, if you're not familiar with a Triskele, let me hold. What's the easiest way to do this? Oh, I know the easiest way to do this. Hold on. Easiest way is to go to here. And go to... Here we go. Open this one. And then this B. Need to... Hold on. Hold. There we go. Oh, but my face is in the way. Hold. Wait. There you go. So this spiral design that you can see on the right-hand side, that is a Triskele. So it's basically 3 spirals connected in the center. So there's like a triangular shape in the center, and then it goes into 3 spirals on all the different sides. These beads, and you can see actually, well, there's, so in the letter C, I was kind of hoping you'd be able to see my my cursor, but oh, all right, well, now you can. So in letter C, you can see how it joins up to the other. This is one of the points of this inner triangle of these spirals right there. Isn't that cool? And you can also see it on B as well. This is where one of the spirals connects. They only ever do that on one side of these beads. And you can see with A, they're not connected. They're just spirals. But here we've got a connection and a connection. And A and B are the same bead. And C and D are the same bead. So this bead is the same as this one. This bead is the same as this one. Yeah, exactly. It's like they've taken the, yeah, Rin, it's like they've taken the Triskele and they've literally folded it around the bead. Isn't that so cool? Anyway, this is a really common style. Well, okay, this style of bead exists in Iron Age contexts in Scotland. So probably about, we're talking like 800 BCE to like 400 CE. But the thing about Scottish glass beads, the thing about beads in general in Scottish archaeology is that most of them are not from secure contexts, which means that they're not from, we can't pinpoint exactly where in the site they're from, which means that we can't actually say when they're from terribly easily. Some beads do have like Iron Age dates. They're in, say, like a floor that's had charcoal in it, so we've been able to date the charcoal, and therefore the beads being associated with the charcoal are in the same general time frame. But that's relatively rare for glass beads. A lot of the time these get said as being Iron Age simply because in the 1970s, a glass bead specialist for Britain said that they were Iron Age because at the time that was what the evidence was pointing to. And since then, everybody's been like, yeah, these are Iron Age. And it's like, no, we don't know, actually. The majority of these are not coming from a secure context. So they could very much be early medieval as well. The other thing is, a lot of people will, well, not a lot of people, but some people argue that they're the same as certain bead types in Ireland and, well, what is now Ireland and England and Wales, but that is incorrect. Those beads tend to have a light color background, lighter than this. like it's like clear, and they're not triangular, they're circular, and they have anywhere between 2 and 4 spirals. And the spirals don't connect in the center on only one side. So they're very clearly not a Triskele that's been folded around the bead. So yeah, they're so cool. Oh, this does actually tell you accession numbers. My bad, I should have. It's fine. Yeah. I love the Triskele beads. Okay, but the coolest part. Okay, hold on, wait. Let me bring these back up, even though it has accession numbers. That's fine. It's fine. Okay, so you can see these beads. The other thing about the Triskele beads is that they're always they're usually a dark background. The spirals are always yellow, and there are always 3 of them. Always in Scotland. Okay. Oh, I should actually probably put my webcam back on. I'm like gesticulating madly, and you can't see it. In true ArchaeoPlays streaming fashion. Yes. So, always a dark background, always yellow spirals. But when you shine a torch through these beads, let me get this one up. Hold on. What are we on? Nope. Sometimes OBS will do things and sometimes it won't. Hang on. I'm gonna move. We're gonna move this so you can see all of it. When you shine a torch through these, so you can see how they're dark with yellow spirals, I mean, there's some, these are like whirl beads, still yellow spirals, just in a different formation. They're all dark. When you shine a torch through them, look at those colors. This one, okay. When I first started doing Scottish glass beads, I would come across entries in journals that would list the color of beads. And a lot of the time they would say black/hot pink. And I was sitting there like, you cannot possibly be confused between those 2 colors. Like a dark blue and a black, sure, or a dark green and a dark blue. Darker colors can be difficult to tell. Black and hot pink, it's not something you can get confused about, right? And so I was wondering what happened. And it turns out that it's because it's nearly black. It doesn't, well, because it's so dark, without light shining through it, you can't tell what the color is. It just looks dark, or at least it looks like a dark shade of a dark color. But then when you shine a torch through it, you get all different colors, depending on the bead. This, and you guys who have been around for a while, you know, I've talked about manganese coloring glass, right? And we've talked about how clear glass was because glass is naturally this kind of, well, actually, it's kind of like this color, this kind of pale green color, because of impurities in the sand. So they would add a tiny, tiny bit of manganese to make it clear, but over time, manganese oxide photooxidizes. So it oxidizes with exposure to sunlight and basically turns the glass more and more pinkish purple as time goes on. Well, as exposure to sunlight goes on, really. So this hot pink, that's manganese. This is what happens when you put more than the tiniest bit of manganese in, is it goes really dark, but then you can shine a torch through. The other cool thing about this, okay, so let me try and get, this is not your photos, your screen isn't fuzzy, it's just there's elements of quality here. So you see how consistent the color is? Like, it's a vibrant, you have a pale green, you've got a yellow, this is like an amber color, and then we've got hot pink, we've got a pale yellow, this one is just black, or it's an opaque, it might be a dark opaque bead, and then we've got really dark blue, we've got this kind of aqua green, and then, hold on, let me move stuff around. Uh-oh, hold on. Let me make sure I'm connected, moving the right thing. Hold on. And then we've got, yeah, like this deep green. all of these beads are made with recycled glass. Beads are not, they're not, in Scotland in this period, we're not making glass in Scotland. We're not even really making glass in the UK in this period. Certainly not in Scotland. There may be parts of further south where there was kind of, but it really depends. Yeah, the Iron Age is a lengthy period as well. it's 1200 years, and then the medieval period is like 1000 years. So yes, but these when you recycle glass, okay, if you don't separate out the colors, you end up with brown / black / you don't get these vibrant colors here. So they're recycling this glass, but they're keeping the colors separated. They're paying attention to what color this glass is, even though looking between the deep blue and the turquoise and the deep green, they all look the same shade of black, right? They're keeping these colors separated. When I saw these beads in, well, these are well, a number of them are in Aberdeen, some of them are in Edinburgh. When I saw these beads, I was curious if you could see this color without, like through sunlight or firelight rather than a torch, if they would be able to see this color. And you can. If you hold them up to the sunlight, the sun streams through them and you get this really bright color, and it's really, really cool. So not only are they doing this kind of color changing thing, they're doing it on purpose, and they're doing it from recycled glass. So they're making sure that all of the glass that they're recycling is the same color for for that bead. Which is amazing. It's so cool. In terms of isolating colors, generally speaking, when you get like polychrome beads or glass objects, a lot of the time what they'll do is they'll kind of break it down as best they can, and then the bits where you can't break, say like the yellow spiral from the remainder, then they just wouldn't use that bit. Generally, you're not recycling beads for glass unless they're monochrome beads, because they're just too tiny. But if you have like glass vessels, okay, all right, I know we're talking about beads, but we have some fun stuff in hold on. Yeah, let's have you look at this one. Ready? This is a glass vessel from early England. Is it gonna let me do it there? No, I have to open this. Look at this. Hold on, wait, let me move it so that you can actually see it. Hold on. There you go. This is called a claw beaker. It's about the size of a drinking glass. And it just has these like tentacle things or claws coming out of it. And they're polychrome as well. So this is like this is one of those colorless glass, basically. This is kind of the natural color of glass, or a natural color of glass. And then the sort of dark blue to form the ridges on these claws or tentacles or whatever you want to call them. So basically if this became recycled into beads, they would use the pale glass. They're basically gonna break away the bits with the dark blue, and then probably not use the dark blue because they're not gonna be able to separate it enough from the other glass. They might, because this is colorless, but yeah, these are great. I love these. They're so strange and they're so much fun. Horse heads. Oh, that's true. They could do. That's very true. Yeah, they're called claw beakers, but there's a whole lot of interpretations for what they could actually be. They're a lot of fun. They're so much fun. Okay, we're gonna go back to beads, and I'm gonna go to my actual bead photos. Here, I'm gonna give you like, okay, so we're gonna talk in part because Akashashin is talking about antimony in chat. So the yellows, a lot of the yellows, is this, where's a good one? Well, they're all good. They're just, it's just that some are better than others in illustrating what I'm trying to say. Hold on. Okay, so this is a tiny bead. This is a seed bead. So, each of these lines, that's a millimeter. So this is only maybe, and actually this is kind of this is probably like 4 millimeters across. It's a tiny, tiny bead. We get a lot of these across time. These are often called seed beads because they're so tiny. In terms of like antimony and tin and a few other different chemical compounds, more or less, those will give this bright yellow color and will make it opaque as well. But there are actually different ways that you can get this bright yellow, which is really interesting because when you test them chemically, you can kind of separate out where, like, what kind of style of, what recipe they've used, basically, which does divide things in a nice way. The problem with chemically testing glass beads is that so for chemical testing, in archaeology, there's a technique called X-ray fluorescence, which allows you to chemically test something based on how it fluoresces under X-rays, more or less. That's an incredibly simple summary. Basically, how the object, how light and the object react to X-rays, effectively, more or less. The issue there is that for XRF, anything lighter than sodium, well, anything that's sodium or lighter, isn't measured accurately. It's too light of an element to be able to be measured accurately. And the problem with ancient glass is that sodium is a major part of the ancient glass recipe. So you kind of need to know how much sodium is in a thing reliably, which means that XRF doesn't really work for glass all that much. So instead we have to rely on something called LAICPMS, or laser ablation inductively coupled plasma mass spectrometry, which is a very lengthy name. Basically what happens is they fire a laser at the object, and that laser cuts out, or like disintegrates, a certain amount of the object, a tiny amount, very tiny amount, and then it chemically analyzes the results, the atoms and the elements that are in there, and it does that through mass spectrometry, which is a whole other kettle of fish that I am not going to get into today. But basically, you can see sort of how many parts per million or how much of a percentage certain elements or compounds make up the glass. The problem with that, as you may have realized, is that you're firing a laser at... Hold on, sorry. Music has stopped. Oh, Pretzel's just thinking. Okay. I'm still live, right? Okay. This is a Pretzel situation. I'm using Pretzel for the first time today. It's fine. Okay, good. I thought something was malfunctioning. All right. So the issue with LAICPMS is that you are damaging the object. It's not non-destructive. It destroys a part of the object, a very small part of the object, but it still destroys that part of the object. And the thing about very tiny glass beads is that, yes, okay, the laser hole is probably, I don't know, like 0.5 millimeter. Well, nowadays it might be even smaller, but say it's like, even if it's only 1 millimeter in diameter, this is only 4 millimeters in diameter anyway. So 1 millimeter, I mean, they're usually smaller than 1 millimeter, but still, 1 millimeter diameter laser hole is actually quite a lot for a tiny object. So basically, LAICPMS is also expensive. So a lot of glass isn't chemically tested, especially glass beads, in part because it's destructive and in part because it's expensive. So that's a general gist of why I don't know what the chemistry of this particular object is. So yes, but these are little yellow seed beads. You can see they're very small, and they're kind of donut shaped or barrel shaped or annular shaped, that kind of stuff. Built-in pre-gasification spectrometry. Yeah, effectively yes, yes, yes. Here, let me see. What are some other... I have to be careful. Let's look at this one. Let me make sure I'm showing you all of the correct images. There's another little one. A little yellow glass bead. And you can see this wire, like, some of these beads... So... I've been talking about accession numbers. Accession numbers are numbers that museums use on their collections. So ideally, every piece that's in a museum collection has a number. And that number is attached to the object in some capacity. For some objects, it's written on the object and then like painted over with a clear nail polish sort of thing. Or, well, these days it's nicer than clear nail polish, but it's effectively that. It's a museum safe adhesive sort of thing, or protective coating. Sometimes they're written on the object, sometimes they're next to the object, sometimes they're on the container that the object is in. In this case, this wire is holding a piece of paper. This is like a thin strip of paper that's just connected to this, telling you the accession number. So that's why that's there. But yeah, that's just the other side of it. And then that's the and okay, so the other thing, these are potentially drawn beads. Okay, so drawn beads. Let's talk about drawn versus wound beads. I know I'm kind of waffling a bit, but you know, it's fine. Can I give you an easy example of a wound bead? There we go. Okay. Oh, that's not a great photo. Some of these photos were taken really early in my bead photographing career, so they're not necessarily super good, but we're gonna use this one anyway because it's here. Okay, right. So this is what's called a segmented bead, and segmented beads they're drawn beads. So there are two ways that you can make glass beads. You can wind them around a stick. You can wind the glass around a stick, well, an iron rod, basically, or you can draw the glass out and then chop it into beads. For this one, this is a drawn bead. So effectively what they've done, the way that you make drawn beads is you have a cone of glass, okay? Imagine you've got a cone of glass and it's stuck on a pole, okay? Big pole. And then they punch they pierce it with another big pole to make an air bubble. And then the point of that cone, they take a hook and they hook it with their hook. They hook the point of the cone and they start pulling. And the air bubble becomes the perforation of the bead. They pull and they pull and they pull until it's so tiny that it's bead-sized. And then they snap it off in what are called canes of glass. So they're like really long canes of glass that have a perforation through them, in this case. But you can get canes that don't have a perforation necessarily. So they snap them into canes of glass and then they'll slice those with a very sharp blade, basically. That's what this is. But to get the look of like multiple beads together, they're not joining a bunch of these beads together. They're rolling it on a mold and then cutting it off in segments. So that's how segmented beads get made. So this is that drawn method, right? Wound beads. These are all drawn. These are all Norse from a site in Orkney. This one's a multicolor one, also Norse, but not made by the Norse. These drawn beads. Nobody in Europe was doing this in the early medieval period. They were not making drawn beads. This is an Asian technique. In what is currently South Asia, Southeast Asia, and parts of East Asia, they were like the main drawn glass bead manufacturers. It was not. We do not have evidence of the types of furnaces required to make drawn glass beads anywhere in Europe at this time. So the Norse, it's not like the Norse were traveling to South Asia and getting beads. I mean, maybe somebody was, but we don't have clear evidence of that. Or it's also not necessarily that somebody from South Asia was traveling to Norway or anything. But trade happens. People travel. The Silk Roads exist in this period, right? The four main branches of the Silk Road, and then like all of the sub-branches. And so beads predominantly were brought through, some of them were brought through the land routes, but a lot of them were brought through the maritime Silk Roads. And so it is actually, it's not the easiest thing, but it's not as difficult as you might think to get from South Asia to Italy via boat. not during monsoon season. It's actually relatively, depending, well, if you catch the monsoon winds going the correct way, it's actually fairly simple. Relatively speaking, as far as crossing an ocean in a boat goes, right? So it's still, there's a level of difficulty here, but it's probably not as much as you might think. So that's drawn beads. This is a wound bead. This probably was made by the Norse, and they're trying to mimic the segmented beads. But they don't have a technique for drawing the beads out, and they don't have the molds to press it into, because when you're winding it around a stick, so wound beads, basically you have this iron rod, and you take if you've seen lamp winding beads, that's what this is. You take the glass, you have a glass cane that doesn't have a perforation in it, and you basically melt the glass and then you wrap it around the pole. And the cool thing about this is that you can wrap quite a few around. You can do like, I don't know, well, it depends on the length of the rod you're using, but you can fit a certain number of beads. And then basically, because iron cools faster than glass, you can turn it upside down, like basically just poke it into a bucket of ash and then just bop the thing, and all of the glass beads will just fall into the bucket of ash to begin annealing, which is fun. So anyway, that's how they're making these. And because of that, they don't really have a mold that they can use for them. So they come out a little bit wonky compared to the really sort of even uniform shape of the drawn segmented beads. Drawn beads are generally very uniform. Wound beads tend to be some interesting shapes because there's a little bit, when you're drawing beads, you're literally just drawing them into like a standard, what we think of when we think of beads, that kind of standard shape. You can affect the shape a little bit, but generally speaking, it's going to be cylindrical or close enough to cylindrical. Whereas if you're doing wound beads or lamp winding in some way, you can get some really funky shapes. And let me show you an example of one of those really funky shapes. Can I get there without? I can. We're already almost there. This is an amber bead, not a glass bead. We'll talk about amber in a minute. Look at how funky that one is. So this is a bead. It's almost, I mean, it's kind of reminiscent of the claw beakers. It's got like little wibbly bits coming out of each perforation. And it's got this kind of sort of spiral herringbone pattern. The terminology between what glass specialists in archaeology use and what people who do stuff like glass artists use sometimes differs. But yes, so this is a bead or a style of bead that's actually found relatively frequently in Ireland at this time, or what is now Ireland, Ireland and Northern Ireland, in the early medieval, Iron Age to early medieval to Norse periods. So what this is doing at a Norse site in Orkney, who knows? But it probably came from what is now Ireland or Northern Ireland, or at least somebody is mimicking one of those. They're really kind of funky. I enjoy these ones. This is not. I only have one of these, so my images are not great. This is back when I was doing my masters and I was using an iPhone and a macro lens attachment for my iPhone back in like the early 2010s. So camera phones, there was only so much you could really do. Actually, this is even earlier than that. This is slightly like 6 to 9 months earlier than that. So let's have a look at some other beads. I said we were talking about amber. Do you want to chat about amber for a bit? I know we've talked about glass a lot, but amber is also pretty great. Hold on. There's one really pretty amber bead that I love. Where is it? There it is. Okay. There's this one. Ask for a couple. Now it's definitely intentional. What's the strange yellow cruff? Oh, you mean in between the... Hold on, let me bring back... That was Cuban. No, it wasn't Cuban. It was this one. You mean like this stuff in the middle? If you mean this is actually just the glass has corroded and there's dirt in there. That's ancient dirt. If alternatively, you zoom through these, you mean this stuff. This is yellow glass that's intentional there. The ends of the one you said looked like coral. Yeah, so this is intentional glass. This is what we call a boss, which is basically just a raised rounded bit on something. It's just a technical term for it. This is an intentional part of the design. Absolutely. And that's yellow glass, but it started to corrode. So glass corrodes, glass will... Okay, so one of the reasons I love glass, ancient glass, is that the color doesn't tend to change terribly much, especially with beads over the years. Like this bead is over 1,000 years old, and it's pretty much the same coloring that it was 2,000 years ago. Unless you have a glass type and a soil type that corrode each other. Even then, this is not actually that different to what it would have been when it was being worn and used and everything. But this glass seems to have not played so nicely. Well, the soil that this bead was in didn't play so nicely with this yellow glass here. I've seen some pretty bad corrosion. Southeast Asia, at times, you get like a very kind of powdery coating almost to the bead, and then like pock marks and stuff. It really depends on it depends on the soil and the glass. Is it supposed to look like clasped hands? That's a really good question, Louis. Also, hello everybody who's saying hello. I am noticing, but I'm like in the middle of a sentence and then I forget by the end of the sentence. So hello to everybody who's said hello. Welcome in. Hello. Yes. These days, people are doing 3D scans with their phone's LiDAR. Yes. My PhD was in 3D modeling of these glass beads. Not this one in particular, but a number of these glass beads. That was what my PhD was in, was looking at different ways of photographing these objects and representing them in three-dimensional space to other archaeologists, so that we could get a bit more information about them and share them a bit more readily. The issue with glass beads, and I'll talk about this for, let's see, well, okay, we're gonna zoom through a few things. I'm sorry if this is very flashing light situation. Okay, all right, hold on. Let me get a decent example. Okay. Yeah, let's just look at this. This is a bunch of drawn beads. Hold on just a second. This is a bunch of drawn beads from the same site that like kind of weird tentacly bead is from. It's about to come back in fashion. I know, right? These are all cobalt blue. Well, I say cobalt, they're probably colored with cobalt. They're a deep blue glass bead. These lines at the bottom, again, are 1 millimeter, so each of these beads are only maybe 3 or 4 millimeters in diameter and maybe 2 or 3 millimeters tall. So they're tiny seed beads. And as you can see, there are reflections across them. Beads are also, they tend to be relatively uniform. They're also generally translucent. You can see bubbles in some of these. And that's a problem. They're also tiny. So traditional methods of 3D modeling, especially for something like photogrammetry, which makes a 3D model out of photographs, the algorithm isn't designed to work with glass. It may be slightly better now, but it certainly wasn't during my PhD. And it wasn't at the end of my PhD, which was 6 years ago now. Actually, yeah, 6 years ago. 6 years ago today, I had my Viva. Okay, so when you do a PhD, you have to defend your thesis. Or your dissertation, depending on what country you're in, what they call it. It's the same thing. It's just different countries use different terminologies for it. With your PhD, you have to defend. And so I submitted my PhD in January of 2019, and then the examiners had a certain amount of time to read it, and then basically they schedule the time where you meet with the examiners and they ask you a bunch of questions. And based on your answers and what they've read, they then decide if you pass. If you pass with corrections of some kind, most people get like a pass with minor or major corrections. And minor or major doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, there's a massive thing wrong with this. It's more the amount of time that they want to give you to do the corrections. So you can imagine if you're like a part-time student who has a family with like 2 children under the age of 5, they might give you major corrections even if you don't have that much to correct, just so that you have a little more time to fit it in among your parenting duties, basically. No worries, Harold, so glad you could join. Yeah, so that's basically that. My Viva was originally scheduled for the 1st of April in 2019. And they told me this. I got this email. It's like, your Viva's scheduled for April 1st. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. But then one of the examiners, their partner was pregnant and their child was born, not on the 1st, but in the kind of intervening period between when it was first scheduled and when we actually had the Viva. So it ended up being a day later. But I did have a moment where I was like, if I go into this, if I go in to speak to the examiners and one of them makes a joke about, you know, if they make an April Fool's joke or something, I might die. So I'm glad that it wasn't actually on April 1st, but it was originally scheduled for April 1st. But yeah, so that's that. I said we were going to talk about amber, so let's talk about amber. I know I'm going all over the place, but part of me cares and part of me doesn't, because it's all just really pretty beads. This is amber, or this is an amber bead. It is, I can't actually show you. Where is this? Where have I gone? Where that? Why do I keep losing where this is in my file? There it is. Okay. Yeah, I can't. This is what it looks like from the side. Hold. There you go. That's what it looks like from the side. This is gorgeous. And this one, I believe it was this one, I made a 3D model of. And it's really pretty. Here, let me see if I can find it. This might... I hope this doesn't take too long. I did not plan on showing these, but they're cool. So here we go. And her PhD. Nope, that's a trial bead. The question is, where did I store this 3D model? Some of my file names in here. Yeah, one of them is not great. Okay, which didn't say what. I love when I use different numbering systems for different beads. It's great. It's wonderful. It's such a good way to do things. Don't have a logical system. I don't know that this is gonna help me anyway. Okay, let's see. Museums? No, that was when I 3D modeled penannular brooches. Hold on. Field work, maybe. Maybe. I know I have it. This is the thing, is that I know that this exists and it's really pretty if I can just find it. But I don't... The number of the object in the file name is not the same as the number of the actual object in my notes. Which is just, you know, a brilliant way to do things. It's a terrible way to do things. Don't... learn from my mistakes. Is this? Maybe. Hold on. Okay. I can't show you half of these images. Did I save an image of this, though? I don't know that I did. Oh, but it's so pretty. Okay, here. I'll show you. This. Look at how pretty. Such a pretty bead. I have a 3D model of this one. Exactly where that 3D model is a really good question. Do I maybe have it in conferences? Probably. Question becomes, which conference have I put it in? Nope, it's not in that one. Man, this is such a good, it's such a good thing though. And it's so pretty. Oh, you know what? Actually, I have a better way to do this. I know I'm taking time on this. Another bead 362. I know, right? There's so many beads. I have thousands of I have thousands of photographs of thousands of beads. Probably close to, actually, probably maybe like, I don't know. It's at least several thousand. It's kind of potentially embarrassing, but I don't care. Okay, right? Not in that. I had to submit it for my PhD. What did I do with that? That's the question. Where is the thing that I had to submit with my PhD? Can I find it in here? Maybe I can find it in here. There's a certain amount of scrolling that's happening. I do apologize, but it's worth it. I promise. It's really pretty. It'll be in the photogrammetry chapter. Hold on. Photogrammetry case study 3. Okay, page 211. Okay. We're getting there. Almost. Oh, we're so close. If I don't have it in here, there we go. Oh, it's because I couldn't get it to actually render the full model, but it's very pretty. Okay, hold. How do I do this? How do I show you this? Maybe what I do is I just show you the window. Can I do that? This is where Archeo realizes that I should have done this sooner. Here, let's add a source. We'll do window capture. We're gonna do this. Okay. We're gonna do this. Okie dokie. Oh, and hold on. We'll move it all the way to the bottom. Oh, maybe not to the bottom of that though. Yeah. So this is the point cloud, basically. So this is photogrammetry. What it does is it looks at all of your images and then it'll measure the differences between the images and try to pinpoint where a specific point in both images is, or well, in multiple images is, in 3-dimensional space. So what frequently happens with beads is that, well, what frequently happens is that you don't get anything at all, and I can show you some of those in a second. But sometimes what happens is you get like these point clouds, right? And it kind of works in terms of like I could edit out the noise. The white is just the piece of paper that the bead was on. So I can delete all of that and get the round image. But then if I say, okay, now turn that into a mesh, the software didn't like that. So it just wouldn't necessarily do it. Some ways that this goes poorly. Here's an example. Failed, look at this. It's an entire section of my PhD. Failed photogrammetric models. Yeah, basically it's because there's too much similarity between one side of the bead and the other side of the bead. It thinks that they're on the same side and it gets the geometry wrong. Another way that this goes wrong is it thinks that all the cameras, that's what these blue things are on the left side, it thinks all the cameras are in the same spot. And so then it just creates like this arc of points. And this is all of them, almost all of them are white. Almost none of them are the actual bead. It's a problem. I then tried to be like, okay, let's put something that's, you know, patterned underneath the bead. And that kind of worked. except that it made everything flat. So the bead that's in the middle is just flattened into the paper. And then you also get this where, yeah, it just doesn't, you just have the cameras in to the same position, and then it doesn't know what it's doing. Let me see if there's other stuff to show you. But the cool thing, okay, here, this is, we're starting to combine the Archeo talks about beads and Archeo explains their PhD. We're kind of doing both. Here, I can do this as well, make it a little bigger. Okay, so let me see, let me go all the way back. Basically, I did a lot with spectral imaging. So changing the filter of light that you look at an object with. Oh, this is exposure. That's not what I'm talking about. Hold on. That's color balancing. Where is this? In my thing. Okay, so different filters in photography will allow different light through and will block out other types of light. Which makes sense. So that's like if you have a blue filter on a camera, then basically it's only letting the blue light through, more or less. And you can get those for RGB colors, for red, green, and blue, or you can get them for like CMYK sort of stuff. There's a whole variety of it in photography. I won't go too far into it, but you can also I'm not sure what's happened here. I feel like there's supposed to be images there and there aren't. And I don't know why. Yeah, I'm not sure what's happened there. But on a regular camera, like a DSLR, you can actually capture near ultraviolet and what would be near infrared images on a regular camera if you remove part of the camera. So don't do it yourself because it's a potentially very expensive problem. But basically, okay, so this is a replica bead that I have. And this is an actual Scottish bead type. This is, for those of you who've seen my videos, you probably know what type this is. It's a wavy line. It's a wavy line around the bead. This is a swag bead. That's the technical term. It makes me happy. So this is a swag bead in the visible color spectrum. So it's a dark blue with a white wave and then red, what we might call collars around the perforation. Although this is kind of like questionable whether it's a collar, but I'm going to call it a collar here. And then, so you have it in the visible spectrum here and also here. But then here, this is it with a digital blue filter. So it's letting the blue light through and nothing else really, basically. And you can suddenly see all of the bubbles a lot clearer than you could in the visible range. Going down here though, when we have a red filter where it's only letting the red light through, the red comes through really nicely, the blue is just black. It's just opaque. Nothing's coming through because there isn't any red light in this blue color, right? There's no blue light going through there. But I realize I've covered half of chat. Me with swag, yeah, I agree. Reminded of the fact they started making Raspberry Pi cameras without the infrared filter on them because the community had a habit of buying them, ripping them out, and using them as night cameras. Yes, yeah. I sent my DSLR to a specialist in England who I don't know that they actually had, like, it was kind of it wasn't necessarily, like, it didn't feel as official as you might want it to feel, sending your expensive camera off to be modified, but they did a fantastic job. And so that camera, it still works. I still have it. At this point, that camera is like 15 years old, but oh, actually it's, wait. Yeah, no, it's like 15 years old. So that's quite a bit, but it worked really, really well for my PhD. So when we're talking about colored light filters, you can, with beads, just use a visible spectrum filter to get more information, like getting at what the bubbles look like. Bubbles are important in general, just for seeing how a lot of basically if like dust or sand or something gets into glass while it's warm and melted and being formed into a bead, that will create an air bubble. Air bubbles can be a sign of like not contamination, but it can be a sign of dust getting in the glass when it was being made. It can also be a sign, like you tend to get a lot of bubbles where two different colors of glass meet because you're having to put two different colors of glass together, and stuff gets trapped in between. Little bits of dust and things get trapped in between. But the other thing is, if you remember back to me talking about wound versus drawn beads, the orientation of the bubbles can often indicate whether it's a wound or a drawn bead. So it's not obvious on this one, but with wound beads, if you have the bubbles, if they're like elongated, you can kind of see with this. Hold on. Ugh. This is enormous. All right. So you see how this bubble, well, actually, no, this is a way, but hold on. This is way better. There we go. That bubble there, right here, it's elongated perpendicular to the perforation because they're winding it around a rod, right? So this is a wound bead. For drawn beads, you would get bubbles that look like this, but the other way around. They would be parallel to the perforation because they're drawing it out, and so the bubbles get drawn as well. Yeah, it's pretty great. Okay, so filters. So then what I did, oh, here's a good, okay, all right. Here's another good thing. Then what I did was, so I looked into bubbles. I didn't get huge amounts of information from it. I thought I might, it kind of helped and it kind of didn't. But the exciting part, the most exciting part for me about my PhD was this. You can see we've got a dark blue bead here. We've got a dark blue bead here. But they react completely differently. This is ultraviolet, the purple photos, and then the black and white ones, that's infrared. They react completely differently in ultraviolet and infrared light. But visibly, they look like they're in the same color category. The only way that this will happen, that it will be different in ultraviolet and infrared, or in visible light, but visible range we can see with our eyes. The only way that this would happen, these different reactions to light, is because the chemistry of the bead is different. So remember how I was saying that it's really difficult to chemically test beads, A, because it's expensive, and B, because we have to fire at them with a laser, and that destroys at least a part of the bead. You don't actually have to do that. You can do spectral photography with a regular camera that you've had modified to allow infrared and ultraviolet light, well, near infrared and near ultraviolet light into, and you can get a chemical reading of this. Okay, so let me zoom down to chemistry because it's really cool and I really like it. Okay, all right, we're starting to get there. Okay, so basically, these are the same beads, just difference in the visible range, and then the infrared range is on the bottom. Effectively, one of the ways that infrared and ultraviolet light gets measured or analyzed by humans is by creating what's called like a false color image. And so this is the visible range, basically the top photo. This is Egyptian glass, actually. And then this is a false color image where the green channel is the visible range, and then the red channel is the infrared range, and then the blue channel is the ultraviolet range. So you change it so that visible colors represent non-visible spectra of light, basically. And what that allows you to do is then analyze the colors, analyze the sort of, you can measure the ultraviolet and infrared is the main thing to, oh, well, actually, this is the infrared, visible, and ultraviolet because it gets into this funky green. What you can then do is measure the colors. Because every color, here, let me see if I can zoom into this so you can see it a little better. When you're in like a Photoshop or any kind of photo editor, you can pick a color and it will tell you the RGB value, right? And so when you create the visible range image and you're measuring that, the R is however much red is in that color, the G is however much green is in that color, the B is however much blue is in that color. When you're looking at a false color image where you've changed all the reds to be the infrared and you've changed all the greens to be the, or all the blues to be the ultraviolet, what you end up getting is the R number is a number for infrared. The G number is a number for the visible range, which is less interesting for our purposes here. And then the B number is the number for ultraviolet. So you may be able to see where I'm going with this. Okay, so basically, there's a bit in this PhD about how to kind of align things and how to color correct. But the one thing that you kind of run into, hold on, let me zoom out a little bit more. One thing you run into is that you have a lot of different, with one of these spiral beads with the yellow colors, there are a lot of different shades of yellow in this photograph. So how do you measure it? Basically what I did, I started out trying to see if I could take like a random sample from across the area, and that kind of worked. And then I realized I could just, the easier way to do this was to just select the entirety of the color on the bead that was well lit, and then average that with a filter, and then measure what that average color was. And so what happens is we get different colors doing different things. And this is black and white. Why is this black and white, Archeo? Because color printing is expensive. So yes, I very much would have liked to have this graph in color, but color printing is expensive. And we, when, at least in Scotland, when you submit your PhD, you have to submit like 3 or 4 copies of it, and you have to pay for the printing yourself. And this is a 465-page thesis or dissertation. Yeah, thesis. It's a lot. So not everything gets to be in color. No Kinkos. I mean, there are. It's just that it's expensive. Yeah. But so this, I had some Roman tesserae that I was using. Tesserae, for Roman tesserae, they're just like little chunks of colored glass. So this is some bits of glass vessels and bits of Roman tesserae. They're all Roman. And you can see that the different colors separate out. And then if we go to, this is some, ignore, here, I'm going to cover that up. We don't really use the term Anglo-Saxon anymore. It's early English, because there's too much connection to white supremacy, and we don't want them thinking that we approve of what they do. So with that material. So yeah, so this is early English glass, and you can see there are some differences, but also like this natural green. The natural green and the natural brown, those are ones that don't have added colors. They haven't intentionally colored it in a certain way. And you can see that they kind of like you've got this brown that's chemically overlapping over here. Now there's a certain amount of like room for error here. Assume that there's like a bit of a ring around each of these where they could be wiggling quite a bit, but not this far. They're not going to wiggle that far in these numbers. And then this is Scottish, Roman, and early English glass. And it's difficult to see, but you can see that some of the early English glass is all down here. The Roman glass we've got kind of in this wider spectrum. The Roman stuff I didn't have as much of the early English glass because that wasn't the focus of my PhD. So if I had more early English glass, then there probably would be more around here. But the cool thing is this. Is this it? This is, that's Egyptian stuff. Okay. So this was cool. I had medieval English window glass from this one site that I was allowed to use. I was given permission to use, which I'm very grateful for. And then I had a bunch of modern tesserae, modern glass tesserae. And you can see, like, look at how beautifully the English glass clusters down here, and all the modern glass is barely close to it. So you can see that's a massive chemical difference between this English glass, and there are some modern glass measurements that are clustering in here, but most of it is not next to the medieval English stuff. And then the other cool thing, so let me talk about what that means for Scottish glass. That's just the whole range. That's not actually as exciting. And then I was curious if because I had done bubbles stuff, I was curious if that mattered, but it didn't really. But what's cool is that I could separate drawn beads from wound beads. And we've got different coloration for the drawn beads. Now this, I mean, there are drawn beads that are interspersed in these other two as well. But this one, this is like a particular site that had like turquoise, bright turquoise beads. I know exactly what these are. But they're different chemistry to the wound Scottish beads. And therefore made by different workshops, probably. So that's cool. This is also copper blue. Just these. Here, let me show you what kind of blue I mean. This is a great example. Let me do those. Give me this. This is what I mean by copper blue. Oh. Hit the wrong button. Here we go. This is what I mean. It's like this bright blue green. It's really, really lovely. That is all of these. And so you can see that like the drawn copper blue beads are all out on their own. And then we have some, I mean, like, okay, in terms of regions, there's one from southwestern Scotland. There are two from northeastern Scotland. A certain number of these examples, we just don't have good data for in terms of like location. No worries, Febble. Thank you for stopping in and everything. But you can see like the Roman copper blue samples, they're nowhere near the Scottish drawn copper blue. So the drawn copper blue beads in Scotland, these ones at least, are probably not made by the Romans, because the Romans generally use the same recipes to make their beads consistently. So that's a color difference. Egyptian, we've got modern copper blue tesserae are the light ones. We've got Egyptian down here, and then we've got the Scottish ones up here. So very clearly different to the Egyptian copper blue as well, which is really cool. And why that is, the difficulty with this is that because it's infrared and ultraviolet, you don't really get a sense of which chemicals are causing that difference. Unless I were to actually like do laser ablation mass spectrometry on it, which I can't do. So basically, like, there was a sizable chance once I had finished my PhD of creating a project where I could work with some glass chemists and we could actually test it with known chemistry with glass samples that we know the chemistry of, to a larger degree than I could for this. And that would be really cool. Part of the problem was I got diagnosed with 7 different chronic illnesses and now I'm disabled, and so I can't do this work anymore. But that was one of the directions that this work could have gone. Potentially. There's also a thing with yellow. Where's my yellow? Oh, here we go. Okay. Including and excluding. Yeah, okay. All right, okay. So, these are the different yellows. So we have modern tesserae that are in a very different chemical zone to the Egyptian stuff. And the Roman stuff, I don't actually, I mean, there's one there and there's one down there, so they're kind of blocked by the Scottish material. I probably should have put the Scottish material on the bottom in hindsight. But anyway, there are different chemicals to this. So you need to head off. No worries, Scotsman. Thank you for sticking around. Yeah, so there's clear differences in chemistry, but the Scottish material, some of it does overlap with the Egyptian and Roman recipes, which means that perhaps that glass is coming from probably Roman avenues of trade. But then there's also this whole chunk that is nowhere close to the Roman and Egyptian stuff. And you can see this is a little bit better because part of it too is that there's one site in Scotland that has like 500 beads from it. And I don't trust that all 500 are from that one site. And the other issue with that site is that most of the beads from there are all a single color, which means that we can't really date them to a specific time or a specific set of centuries. And the other thing is that they're not from a secure context. They're just things that people found in the sand. So it doesn't, like, we don't have anything else that we can date them with, basically. I think also because a significant number of them were, it was like a series of fines and donations from the public over a period of like 5 to 10 years. I think it's possible that some of these beads didn't come from that site, but because that was the site that was being talked about in the media at the time, people associated it with that. And so a certain number of these are probably from the wider area. They're all probably from that area of Scotland. But in terms of whether they're actually Iron Age and early medieval and whether they're actually from that specific site is anybody's guess. So taking those strings out, you do still see, though, this spread between the sort of modern-ish chemistry types and then these Egyptian and Roman types. And that's potentially a difference between like antimony and tin. So it's cool stuff. It's cool stuff. And I'm sad that I didn't really get to do much with it. And this is also yellows. Between polychrome samples, these down here, and the monochrome ones. And so there's a possibility that the chemistry of the yellow for the polychrome samples is being altered by the dark colors of the base of that bead, which is cool. Anyway, that was, and then I did a lot with the chemistry because I was really excited about it. And then I did all of the 3D modeling and reflectance transformation imaging, which led to some stuff that was cool, but also it was mostly me being like, if the rules generally fail, then break them and see what happens. That's the gist of that chapter. And then I tested some of this stuff. So in terms of like chemical testing, this will happen. It's not just glass that this works with. You can do it for anything. So this is a section of one of the trenches on Iona. One of the things that false color images are used for in agriculture and ecology is looking at where plants are growing and where plants are healthy, because plant material lights up in near infrared light. So when you make a false color image, you end up with patches of plant material, even plant material that's been in the ground for a millennium and a half. That's what this red down here is. This is all like peat and semi-decayed organic matter. So that's what that is. But coal and charcoal doesn't light up in infrared; it lights up in ultraviolet. This is a charcoal layer, also from a different trench on Iona, but it's also from Iona, and you can see that it's a lot. I mean, it's kind of equally visible in both places. But if we were looking at this and kind of unsure whether it was a charcoal layer, you could use false color imaging with a DSLR and get a better sense of what is there, whether it's an organic material or charcoal. So anyway, that was the kind of final bit of, I promise this applies to more than just glass, because for the entirety of my archaeological career, I've had to explain to people that glass is really cool, but also like people will look at me and be like, why do you study glass? So I have to convince them. But yes, that's that. Shall we? I know I'm waffling. I'm aware that I'm waffling. Do I have other pretty things to show you? I mean, I always have pretty beads. We also get, okay, these ones are cute. I like these ones. Going slightly off kilter / adjacent / left field. This is a little melon bead. I love the little melon beads. They've got like little ridges. They look like pumpkins. This is a particularly unusual type for this period. This is more of like a Norse period sort of thing. Well, it is Norse period. This is from a Norse site. But there are Roman ones, or Roman era ones. Hold on, let me get to Newstead. That's not the greatest of images. Where's a halfway decent one? Newstead is one of the sites that I took a lot of photos of on my phone, and they didn't necessarily capture well. Goodness, come on. Where's a good... Okay, here's one. We do need a glass bead emote. Absolutely. Okay, any 48? There we go. This is a bigger one. It's chunkier. It's only part of it, but it's there. Oh, there we go. That's a decent one. They're like little pumpkin beads. Well, I say little. They're probably like an inch tall. So like a couple of centimeters. They're pretty great. I like them. But these are glass, and they're almost always made out of like that deep blue. Cobalt blue is a really popular color for the Iron Age and early medieval Scottish glass bead corpus. It's a really common color. That and opaque yellow are the two big ones. And then that kind of blue-green, that really coppery blue-green. I call it copper blue-green, copper blue or copper blue-green because that's the metal that's used to color it that way. So it's not because it's the color of copper, like oxidized copper, as you'll know from Minecraft, is a slightly different shade, but copper itself is used to get that color of blue in glass. Let me see. Here's some more blue. Can I get to faience? This is an exception to that blue, but it's one of the only ones. This is a really dark green, actually. Here we go. We're getting into faience. Hold on. No, ignore that. That's like a medieval bead. Later medieval. So these are faience beads. They're melon beads. The Romans loved their melon beads. Some of these are much later. What happened to... Okay, hold on. I was going the wrong direction. That's why. Hold on. There we go. Were those drawn beads? No. But I like that you were thinking about it. These, here, let me see, because we had one where you could kind of tell. It's difficult to tell with the darker glass as well, because like the way that glass kind of gets pockmarks and things when it's been in the ground, those can look like bubbles as well. And the image quality on these is not great because my photography skills were not great. But there was an example. Okay, this is not the greatest of images. But 77. Here we go. You can see the striations going across all of the little melon bits. So what they did was they wound the bead and then they like pressed it into a mold, or pressed a mold around it, which is fun. And or they may have taken a blade and just cut the things themselves, but a lot of the time they would press it into a mold, which is really cool. Here, let me get back to our faience example. So, the Romans really liked their faience beads. The Egyptians liked faience as well. Faience is a glass-like material. It's kind of like glass-esque, glass-ish. It's not quite glass, but it's made from the process for making faience and the process for making glass starts out the same, and then it starts to differ. And the Egyptians loved their faience, and the Romans also loved their faience beads. These we get a lot, these faience melon beads, we get them a lot around like horse burials for the Romans. We think that they used them on like bridles and reins a lot to decorate their horses' gear. They're really pretty. They're such a nice color. The other cool thing about these and here's an example of it really corroding, because faience, because it's not the same as glass, it reacts differently to soils, and it's a little more fragile, at least in Scottish soils, than glass is. So it really, this blue color is the original color. Everything else is just corroded bits of faience, and how the color has changed over the last couple of millennia. Because the Romans were in Scotland roughly in the first, sort of the 2nd century CE, and a little bit into the 3rd. But basically, like so you have Hadrian's Wall, which divides effectively at this point, I mean, it's more or less on the border between what is now England and Scotland. It's not quite, but it's close. There's also another wall. There's the Antonine Wall, which basically goes from Glasgow to Edinburgh. And it goes along that bit of land. And the Antonine Wall, I've talked about it a couple of times. No, not seance. Faience with an F. I can understand the confusion though. I mean, who knows? Beads are versatile. Maybe they were used in a seance. But yeah, so the Antonine Wall basically went between what is now Glasgow and what is now Edinburgh. And that was the furthest north that the Romans really controlled in Britain. There are walls that go further north. Septimius Severus pushed a little bit further north into Scotland than Antoninus Pius, who's the guy who commissioned the Antonine Wall. Basically, Antoninus Pius, he became Caesar, and much of Roman politicians, many Roman politicians were not super sure that he was actually like cut out to be Caesar. So he basically felt like he needed to prove himself. So what he did was he pushed into Scotland because the Romans were continually fighting against the Picts, which are different to the Picts of the the early medieval period. They're kind of the same, but there's overlap, but they're not the same group of people. They kept running into the local groups in Scotland. Yes, Akashash and Faience. Yeah. They kept clashing with them because they didn't want to be under Roman rule, so they kept fighting basically. So Antoninus Pius was like, I'm gonna push further into this border and extend our territory in Britain. So he did, and then he had the Antonine Wall built, and it took them like 20 years to build, maybe more. And they occupied it for about 20 years before they then abandoned it and went back to Hadrian's Wall, and that became the border again. So it was a lot of effort to build a wall so that Antoninus Pius could convince people that he was going to be a decent Caesar, and then they abandoned it pretty quickly. But why this matters for Faience beads is that Faience beads in Scotland fall direct, like none of them, we don't find them north of the Antonine Wall. The only parts of Scotland we really find Faience beads in. Why can't I? Oh, because I was doing that on. It's fine. I am a competent person. The only places that we find Faience beads from the Roman period in Scotland is in the places that the Romans controlled, which is cool. But we find melon beads in a number of places. Generally, we find them, like the glass ones, we find them, generally speaking, in the same zones as the Faience melon beads. But some of them do go a little further north. So they are looking at these melon beads, and some people are replicating them and taking them a little further north. But a lot of the time, this was kind of limited to Roman-controlled, to the Roman-controlled areas of what is now Scotland, which is fun. Anyway, oops, I shouldn't show you accession numbers.
What's even worse than that is you end up with lingering doubts as to whether your workmanship is good.
Okay, this is probably the last bead that I'm going to talk to you about, because I can tell that if I don't stop soon, my voice is going to go. But these are some of my favorite beads. I have a lot of favorite beads. It's like trying to choose, like, I don't know if I can choose a favorite, but this is one of my favorite beads. Do you find seed beads if you cut open a melon bead? I love it, Threo. Well done. I wish. They look more like squash. Yeah, so they're kind of like, they're called melon beads, but they're kind of more like pumpkin shaped. It's just that when they were first being described, it was in a dialect of English that equated melons and squash and pumpkins and things. And because they weren't easily like specifically identifiable as more like squashes rather than melons. So it's, yeah, they don't look exactly like a watermelon or something, but it's fine. It's fine. Also, thank you for the hydrate dragon. Also, if you take medications and it's the time of day when you should have taken medications or are supposed to take medications, this is your reminder to take medications. No, that was in Akashash, and I think that was part of this song, even though I have a filter for only instrumental stuff. I think there was a bit of talking in the song. But this song is almost over. So I'm not, yeah, I don't know. It was weird. But it's not just you, Akashash, and that was definitely there. So these, I can't like, okay, these, all three of these are what are called metal foil beads. And basically what happens is these they were really popular in what is now like Turkey and Syria, and basically the Western Asia, Arabian Peninsula, that sort of area. In this period, in the first millennium CE, they were really, really popular and kind of originated there, and then they kind of spread out from there, as far as we can tell. That, as always, may change in the future, depending on what we find, but that's the general gist. What they did was they would make a base layer of glass that's kind of like this stuff here, right? Okay, this dark bit here. They'd make a base layer of glass, then they would cover that in gold foil or gold leaf, or for the Norse, they would cover it in silver foil and silver leaf, because the Norse liked their silver. And then they would put another layer of glass on top of that. And you can see where like the gold leaf, where there are bits like bubbles have formed when the glass touches the gold foil, because there's dust there and it forms, when glass touches dust, it forms bubbles. So yeah, so the gold leaf is sandwiched between two different, oh, it might be a touch loud at times. Okay. I'm using pretzel. So it's the first time that I've used it, and I did mean to say, let me know if the music is ever loud. I've just turned it down a bit, and hopefully that helps, and if not, I can turn it down. Maybe do that. Let me know. But yeah, so it's like gold leaf that's sandwiched between these two layers of glass. I like metal or silver leaf. So they're metal foil beads because they could be gold or silver leaf in between. Now I like those ones, but my favorite ones are in Thailand, or what is now Thailand, in like 400 BCE. Bye, Akashashin, no worries. In what is now Thailand, in like 400 BCE, somebody realized that you could, if you made the inner bit of glass like this orangey yellow color. Oh, it froze for a second. It does that sometimes. It'll do that sometimes. If you make the inside glass this orangey yellow color, and then you cover it in a kind of like colorless yellow, a pale yellow color, then it looks like it's a gold foil bead, but there's no gold foil in it. And that by itself is kind of fun as just like a cheaper way to make a similar style of bead. But archaeologists did not know that there was no gold in those beads until they chemically tested them. It was not like, they look very, very similar. I mean, this one's got the outer layer is broken, so you can see it a little easier. Is it? There we go. This is probably closer to what a lot of them looked like. And this is a drawn bead. You can see the striations going across. So basically, they looked like this. People assumed, oh yeah, okay, that's a gold foil bead. And it wasn't until that we could actually chemically test the object and test all of the layers of the object that the researchers were like, wait a minute, there's no gold in this. Like, no gold at all was showing up in the chemical testing. Like, if there's gold leaf, there should be a measurement for gold, and there wasn't. So those are my favorite because effectively it means that probably in like 400 BCE in what is now Thailand, someone figured out a way to con the system. And if that isn't incredibly human, I don't really know what is. It's just one of those, oh, hello humanity. Yeah, not that I'm encouraging conning the system or making fake beads that look super expensive but aren't. But I love that humans do that sort of, it's so very human. It's so very human. Yeah, those are the gold foil beads. They're fun. They're a lot of fun. There's so many beads. There's so many bead types that I haven't even shown you. These are just the ones from Scotland. And I haven't even shown you all the ones from Scotland. There's so many beads. There's some funky... Do you want to see a really funky... Here, right. I know I said that was the last one. but I've got a really funky swag bead to show you. Hold on, hold on, hold on. There you go. It's got eyes too. The little dots with the swirls. It's got little eyes. And then like a... People would call this reticella. It's not reticella. But in archaeology, you might see somebody call this sort of swag line pattern, the patterning of the glass that's making the swag line, they might call that reticella. I know it's not technically reticella for all you glass workers out there. I blame archaeologists. It's perfectly fair. But yeah, this is a fun one. Very pretty. It's got little eyes. Where's another here? I can just start like, let me this is just a funky one. It's like they were experimenting. They just put a bunch of different little blobs on. Another series of yellow beads. This is one like cane of glass. More faience. Some weird beads. There's a swag bead. This is one of my good swag bead images. Swag beads usually are this dark blue with like a white or a yellow wavy line. You know what's really cool is that for a lot of these beads that are dark blue and then have white, some of them, and this is true for like glass vessels that do this as well, in the entirety of what is now the UK and the UK and Ireland, and Northern Ireland, some of these lines are white glass. Some of them are just loads of bubbles that have been carefully shaped in this pattern. So you get like, it's a blue glass and all they've done is flooded these lines with bubbles. There's no other color in there. There's no white glass in there. They've just flooded it with bubbles so that it looks opaque white. Which is so cool. People are so smart. It's so great. I love humans. There you go. This is one. This is one. Okay, so this doesn't have this white color. None of that is white. Like, there's no antimony, there's no bone, there's no anything that's turning that white or opaque. It's purely bubbles. It's this blue glass that they've flooded with bubbles in this pattern. Intentionally. How cool is that? So smart. People are so smart. Nice green ones. These probably aren't early medieval, but they're pretty. A certain amount of this was me documenting like a bunch of beads that probably weren't early medieval, but we couldn't be sure. This is, okay, we're getting into amber. And I've also flashed a number of different accession numbers that I probably shouldn't, so it's fine. It's fine, it's fine, everything's fine. Here's a funky one. Okay. This is again not one of my best photos, but it's fine. Need to open this. There you go. This is a double swag eye bead. It's got these funky eyes with the red irises, or not irises, pupils. Red center. This is an unusual eye pattern as well. Usually the eyes, they tend to be like white or yellow, and then a dark blue kind of iris sort of situation. And then there's this double swag line. So the two different swags going around. They're fun. I like that one. It's a funky bead. Seeing if there are any other cool ones that I can show you before we stop stream. Shall I show you? Okay, my favorite one. I know I've shown you guys this before, probably, because I would be really surprised if I somehow didn't. But it is one of my favorite beads in existence. It's this one. About to talk about amber? Oh, yeah. And then antimony in Egypt. It happens. Amber is cool, but also the amber in European beads in this period is all Baltic amber. It's all coming from the same spot in the Baltic, what is now in the Baltic, which is now like Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, that sort of region of Europe. That's where all of the amber from Europe is gotten from, and yeah, it's cool. But they're all monochrome. They're all similar shapes. They're very pretty. but there's not much else I can say about them, especially in Scotland because they don't have secure contexts, most of them, so I can't really, we don't have many of them, and then they don't have secure context, so I can't really do much other than say, hey, these are cool and they're pretty. But yes, this is like a marbled bead. It's made with 2 colors of glass. We have a transparent or translucent dark blue, and then we have our opaque yellow, and the opaque yellow has just been marbled into the blue. So all of the green, that's just where the blue is overlapping with the yellow and making it appear green. So they've made a tricolor bead with 2 colors of glass. And this is one of, technically I think 4 examples. It's one of 3 bead examples that I have. There's this one, and then there's another one that I can't show you because the accession number is plastered right across the good part of the bead. But there's one where it's a deep dark blue and then an opaque red. So it's blue, red, and purple in the bead instead of blue, yellow, and green. It's really, really cool. These I love, especially because they are, this one not necessarily, well, this one is probably from an Iron Age or early medieval context, early medieval site. And then the other one, the blue and red and purple one, I believe is a certain amount more secure than this one. There's a lot more chance of it being like it's most likely early medieval in date, which is really, really cool. And I've studied beads in this period for like 15 years. I have never seen another bead like this in Europe or Asia. That doesn't mean that they don't exist, but I've never seen it. I've shown this style of bead to a lot of bead specialists and they've never given me a parallel to anywhere. So it seems like a certain amount of what, you know, talking about the Triskeli beads and the recycling way back from the beginning of stream, there's a degree of play. They're playing with the glass and they're doing things, doing different things, doing new things with the glass and experimenting with it that I find really, really wonderful. And like you can just see their brains working in the way that our brains would. And I love it. Yeah, seaweed coated. It does. Yeah, it's great. It's really great. It's so good. So good. Why can't the numbers risk becoming visible? Because basically a lot of these images I took when I was while I was in a museum, and I had permission to take the photographs. I have permission to use them in my PhD, but I don't have permission outside of that necessarily to be advertising them. So it's not like I won't get in trouble for this per se, but ethically, they're not objects where you could go to the museum and see them in a display or go to the museum website and find them in the collections. So I'm trying to keep the numbers off screen because that tells you exactly what and where it is, and where it was found as well. And the other thing about archaeological sites, depending on, I mean, like here it's less of an issue. In Southeast Asia, for example, it was a bigger issue of not wanting to give specifics of where a site was because people might go and dig up the archaeology before archaeological teams can get there, unfortunately. And there's a whole lot of nuance to all of these discussions. It's not a black and white thing in the slightest. There's all sorts of grey. But I have worked on a site where we found a site, spoke to the landowner. We were going to come back the next day to dig it. And when we did, it had already been looted. And that was 12 hours from when we had confirmed that it was a site with the landowner. So it does happen. It's unfortunate. But basically, yeah, it's kind of a mix of that and also wanting to respect the museums, basically, because these are also from a number of different museums. And they were very gracious to allow me to photograph all of these. So I want to be as respectful as I can with showing the images, basically giving credit to the Scottish material while also not making their finds available without crediting them or without having permission from them to do so, if that makes sense. Pillagers aren't just a problem in Minecraft. No, unfortunately not. Unfortunately not. And as I said, there's nuance to all of that. So like personally, I think there are exceptions, or there are times where it makes sense for people to be like, people who are descendant communities of a culture should be able to use the archaeology of their ancestors in a way that feels appropriate to them, right? So it's not like, I'm not an archaeologist who feels that we should ban, that everything should be preserved in a museum. I'm not an archaeologist who feels that we should ban non-heritage professionals from interacting with the past. So like this, and when it gets into, say, activities that can get classified as looting, there's a whole lot of nuance. In this particular case, it was people, the landowner effectively contacted some friends of his who were in contact with people in the capital city, which was an 8-hour drive away, and a completely different ethnic group. And basically they picked up everything from the site, they took it back to the capital city and sold it on the black market. So so it wasn't like they were digging it themselves and using it in a respectful manner necessarily. And it wasn't, yeah, there was a lot of politics involved. But yeah, there's always nuance to every situation, including the it belongs in a museum thing. I don't necessarily agree with Indiana Jones that everything belongs in a museum, because then where's it going to be displayed? For those who may not know, generally speaking, in a museum, especially big museums, probably only about 1% of their collection is on display at any given time. For sort of mid-sized museum, it's between 1 and 5% of their entire collections. The vast majority of museum collections never get put on display, and some of that is because they're too fragile or too delicate to be put in a box for people to look at, really. So like you can imagine a lot of old documents, for example, older pieces of artwork, or like human remains, for example. There's a lot of ethical consideration of whether you do display human remains, and whether that whether that's an ethical thing to do in the culture that the museum is in, basically. And again, there's nuance to that discussion as well. But yeah, it's the vast majority of collections never see the light of day, and some of it is because it's just not, I mean, like, it's lumps of, you know, there's so many beads in here that are just sort of lumps of glass that look the same as other lumps of glass. I just had better photos of similar looking stuff, so I showed you the good photos, or at least as mostly good photos. But a lot of these beads are never going to be on display. So that's a bit of a shame. You know, we've spent time taking them out of the ground, and if, you know, there's so few people studying beads in Scotland, studying glass in Scotland, especially glass beads, there is a valid question of what are we preserving them for, you know? And I think there's nuance. There's so much nuance to all of this. But it is a valid question of, you know, in terms of preserving everything, I think every archaeologist is well aware that we cannot physically preserve everything. It's a question of what we do preserve and how. And especially with museums, the other thing to keep in mind about museums is that they get new stuff every year. Basically every day, museums end up with new things. And so there's an entire backlog of data that and accessioning. So all of these numbers, the number is basically a unique code within the museum that the object is in that corresponds only to that object. So all of the information about that object gets registered under that number, so that you can look at the information, you can look at the object, and you can pair them together, basically. And then when you're writing about that object, you use the museum accession number so that anybody in the future who wants to go and look at the same object can find it in the museum. Now, sometimes accession number systems change depending on the museum. I mean, it's a gargantuan task if you change it for a larger museum, but it has happened in the past. But a lot of the time, because you need to give a number to everybody, to every object, if you acquire a collection that has 1,000 objects in it, usually there's like one person whose job is to organize all the accession numbers. If they've got a new collection of 1,000 objects, that's 1,000 numbers that they need to not just put into all of these, like their database, but they also need to find a way to permanently connect it, or as close to permanent as possible, connect it with the object that it corresponds to. And then you have to store the object properly. So there's the net result is that there's usually a massive backlog of things that have come to the museum, but that haven't been able to be registered in the collections yet. And that's on top of all the other stuff. So it's, yeah, there's museums always need more funding. There's a whole lot of stuff. Yes, Quack, there's a there's a thing on Twitch where you can play a little, you can spend channel points to play the little quack noise. Unfortunately, I can't get that for YouTube because YouTube doesn't have channel points. It doesn't let me do it. So yeah, you'll see the quack, but that's a Twitch thing, unfortunately. It's set in and prior a museum, often meant a museum on a completely different continent. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. The idea of taking something from the culture that it was created in and then bringing it to a completely different culture so that it's on display there at best, or it sits in the museum for centuries. Like, are we really doing a service to this other culture? You know, this is the other thing, like when people start to argue that certain museums are safer than others. Now, obviously, a museum in a war zone is not a safe museum for things to be in, but also predicting where war is going to be is not a straightforward thing. You know, it's not like you can look at a museum and know that in 50 years it's going to be in a war zone. But the idea, for example, that like Egyptian museums are less capable of taking care of Egyptian material than European museums is absolute nonsense. It's ludicrous. It's incorrect. It's categorically wrong. And a lot of the time that argument is used to justify keeping objects in European or colonial, like historically colonial museums, rather than returning them to the place of origin that object came from. So yeah, it's again, it's not always, there's nuance to everything, but I'm very much generally a proponent of repatriation for museums as well. And also allowing descendant communities to experience, yes, Glam Pixie, definitely Britain. Yeah, allowing descendant communities to experience their own heritage and to explore their own heritage. Why is it, you know, there's no reason why a child in I don't know, let's go with Germany, should be able to experience more of ancient Egyptian culture than a child in southern Egypt. You know, there just isn't. And we can talk about it being a shared human history, and yes, it is, but there's always going to be a group or a community that is more closely related to something and has a bit more of a stake in a group or an ancient culture or object or something than other humans. You know, can you imagine if I don't know, if India just decided that they had more say on colonial American history, you know, like if they're like, oh yeah, no, we're just better able to care for the original Mayflower, so we're just going to take it but it's a shared human history, so obviously it's fine, we can just take it away from America. You know, like, if you're not okay with it going the other way, you shouldn't be okay with it the way it is. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox because I'm talking in circles, but still. Can't take stability for granted in supposedly safe countries either. Exactly. And we're seeing examples of that this year, which is wonderful. And by wonderful, I mean awful. So yeah, you can't predict history. You can't predict how things are going to shake out. And assuming that one museum is safer than another when neither of them are in active war zones and both of them are perfect, like have the facilities for caring for an object, it's ludicrous. And the idea that more people would be able to see something if it was in, say, I don't know, like the British Museum, and well, yeah, I'll just use it. If we're talking about the Parthenon marbles, you know, there have been arguments of, well, more people will see them if they're in the British Museum than if they're in Athens. It's like, that's a ridiculous argument. What do you mean more people will see them? Like, I mean, yeah, maybe more British people will see them. You know, more Western Europeans might see them. But I don't know how many North Americans are traveling to the British Museum specifically to look at Greek marbles. I mean, probably more people in the United States have Greek heritage and are going to Greece. so yeah. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of nonsense around it. And yeah, in terms of like where things are, I always just ask myself, who's the one who benefits the most from it? And if the answer is a historically colonial power over a culture that they don't have much connection to, then yeah, that's just what it is. It's colonialism, basically. It just reskinned. Donuts are just beads made of dough, so tangents are beads. Yes. This has been one massive bead tangent. It's been compounding bead tangents. Exploding bead tangents. You know, when you get like okay, this is a very tabletop RPG reference, but you know, when you get exploding dice, so basically like if you roll, say, a 6-sided die, and you get a 6, then you get to roll again, and if you get a 6 again, you can roll again, and you basically add all of that together. That's effectively what this was. It was like, here's a bead, oh wait, and then here's another one, and then here's another one, and here's another random one. Yeah. It's a thing. Is London Bridge? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anyway, we've ended on a somewhat serious note. Let me here. You know what I'm gonna do? We've ended on a serious note, so I'm gonna reward us with. Hold on. Some of you can probably guess where this is going. Hold on. There we go. Oh wait, you should be able to see the whole dog. We'll end with a dog. Are humans beads, so beads are about it? Yes. Yes. Beads are about everybody. Beads are great. Beads are also like, they can be used in so many different ways. So it's so good. They're so good. It's physically impossible to predict how people in the past would have used beads. It's not physically impossible to predict some ways that they used beads, but to predict every single one is physically impossible. I've seen beads. The thing that made me realize that was it was an ancestor statue in Indonesia, in the National Museum of Indonesia in Jakarta. I was looking at beads along, and it was like going along this display. There was like this along the wall, looking at a lot of really pretty beadwork for a variety of objects. And then I turned around and saw this ancestor statue, which was it was human skeletal remains. It was a human skull where the eye sockets had been filled with pitch. And in the two eye sockets, in the two eyes, there was a single bright blue-green bead, like those copper blue beads, that really pretty turquoise color, one in each eye. And I saw that in like 2010, 2009, somewhere in there. I was like, oh, I would never, ever have guessed that was something people would do with glass beads. And yeah, it's stayed with me as like something, just a reminder that you can never fully predict how people will do things, or what uses people will have for an object, because the common ones or the logical ones, sure, you'll get those, but in terms of every possible use, especially for something as versatile as a glass bead, you're never going to come up with all of them. But anyway, yes, Icelandic sheepdog. For anybody who wasn't here at the beginning, I've been doing a lot of finding images for our artists for Carved in Stone, which is our tabletop RPG setting guide for the Picts. That also doubles as just an illustrated encyclopedia of the Picts for the late 7th century. The Picts were a group in Scotland who lived in northern and northeastern Scotland in the early medieval period. So from the 400s-ish to the sort of 9th century is when they unify with another kingdom, and then they never really go away. They just kind of change. And so we're getting images together for all of our artists to be able to do art of the Picts. And one of the things that I had to do was figure out what their herding dogs might have looked like. And this is the closest we could get, was an Icelandic sheepdog. And they're so cute. They're so cute. Just and the little blip. It's good. They're little. They're like the size of a fox, a little bit bigger. They're like a Shiba Inu, but floof. Different floof. They're so cute. I can't handle this little puppy. I cannot handle this. It's too cute. And look at how beautiful, like that coat. It's so pretty. Anyway, I think we're probably gonna end stream there. I feel like that's a good place to end stream. I don't know if I'm trying to decide if I should raid anybody. We've just been talking about beads, so it's not like I can really raid anybody who is doing archaeology. I don't think. Doing archaeology. I don't. Gosh. Trying to see. Yeah, I think I'll probably leave it there. I probably won't raid anybody. So I'll close out of that window before I get confused about which window I'm on. But yeah, I hopefully will stream next week. Hopefully. Probably a similar time. I did a poll in Discord and the majority of people on all continents were saying that this time works a little bit better or is a time that works for them. And it works better for me, which is helpful. Yes, Robert Skidge, beads. So yeah, hopefully this time next week, we'll be doing Minecraft, I promise. We'll be doing something. We'll either be doing more rock art because I haven't been able to make any progress on that video, or we'll start building Skara Brae on ArchaeoSMP, or at least figuring out how we're gonna build Skara Brae on ArchaeoSMP. So that'll be fun. Yeah. So thanks everybody. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next week probably. But also there's Discord. Here, let me see, have we got it in? I don't think we've got it in the YouTube chat. Hold on, let me get a thing. Where have they put this? Here it is. They changed a certain amount of the layout for Discord, but anyway, here's the Discord link. So you can join the Discord. It's free to join. You don't have to be a follower or subscriber or anything. It's up to you. But yeah, that's where I post whether I'm gonna stream most often. My goal is to stream on Wednesdays, either at this time or around like 6:30 p.m. UK time. So about 5.5 hours after when we started today. But it's probably going to be more afternoon because I am a bit more alive and alert in the afternoons than I am in the evenings. Yeah, I hope you guys, I mean, you seem to enjoy it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And I'll catch you all next week or in the Discord before. All right. See you everybody. Enjoy the dog photo.
Long.